How's it going, everyone? Ricky here from Bully BBQ, and today I'm going to show you my tips on how you can get nice, big, meaty pork ribs, even here in Australia. One of the things I probably get asked the most is, how are your pork ribs so big? Like, where do you get them from? They're so meaty. And it's not so much where I get them from, it's more what type of ribs they are and how I talk to my butcher. So I'm going to run through that today with you guys, and we'll go through a couple of important differences about American pork and Australian pork so you fully understand. So what I've done here is, I just said to my butcher, I said, Big Al, mate, just give me the whole side of the pig. So this is the whole side. This is the head end, the shoulder is just there with the little legs comes down, that's the tail end, and that wraps around, and then that's your belly there. Your pork belly's just there. So if I spin this around here, remember that's the tail end. We'll do a zoom in here and I'll show you what I mean by where the ribs come from and why it's so hard to get good meaty pork ribs in Australia. So as you can see here, the ribs are there. They used to have the spine through there. I've just got the butcher to remove that just so you can see a bit better, but they call it the chine bone. It sits up through there. That's your belly. Now the main thing I want you to look at is this through here. You know, does that look familiar? Because that's Australian bacon. So what the butchers are trained to do is they'll come in and they'll follow that rib bone and they'll trim all the meat off the top of the rib for the bacon. Now the problem with that is then, you know, obviously there's no meat on top of the ribs. You're only left with shitty little ribs that have a bit of meat in between the bones. And that's the problem with getting meaty ribs in Australia. So what we'll do, I'll explain the different types of ribs, because there's a couple different types. They're kind of American terms, and after you understand the different types, I'll explain exactly what you need to say to your butcher to get some nice meaty ribs. So the two different types of ribs they kind of come from American slang. If you see the curved section of ribs there, that basically kind of run roughly along where I'm showing my knife there, they'll sort of follow that loin across through that curve. They're called baby back ribs. Now they're mainly popular in Memphis, and if you were to cut them right through there with the bandsaw, what you're going to be left with is this section, which is spare ribs. So they're the ones I use, spare ribs, but then we'll just do a little bit more trimming to them to turn them into a St. Louis cut. Now, all the competition teams, well, most of them use St. Louis cuts. They're the biggest, meatiest, they normally turn out the juiciest in my opinion. So, I'll just go through a cross section again, just so you fully understand what I'm talking about. This blue section here is the curved ribs. They're called the baby backs. This green section from there to there is spare ribs. Over there you've got the rest of the belly. Now to turn the spare ribs into the St. Louis cut, which is what I use in competitions and a lot of competition teams do, you just need to trim off these rib tips or riblets. You can still use it. They're really tasty. They've just got a bit of cartilage and other stuff in them. So that's how you do it. And with the St. Louis, I'll follow, there's a seam of fat that runs along here. I follow that off and trim some of this belly type meat off here. I just find it's not as good. You can leave that on and they'll be even meatier ribs. Up to you, just have a bit of an experiment. But they're your different types of ribs. So hopefully that makes a lot more sense to you now, and you can refer back to this picture. So just in summary, everyone, you want to ask your butcher for a slab of spare ribs or a bone-in pork belly, and that's what they should give you. And then you can trim them into a St. Louis style cut yourself. Or you can use baby back ribs. Some butchers will call them USA style ribs, but they're probably not going to be as meaty. There you go. So I hope you kind of understand the different type of pork ribs now. It's probably going to help when you're eating American type recipes, and you should know exactly what you need to ask your butcher now to get nice meaty pork ribs to impress your friends. So